Now, live from Ernie's Cut Rate Liquor Store, shooting range, candle shop, bowling alley, massage parlor, it's the Dave and Doc Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello, hello. It is not a happy day.
It's not a happy day. It's not a happy day for Doc. So, folks, welcome to the show. And real quick, Doc is not with us today. For all you folks watching on video, you see my handsome face and also the Joe Montana jersey that I'm wearing. And Doc is going to have to wait and see what I have done on his chair to represent him in the video. So.
If there's a Tar Heel in that chair, you were doomed. I'm just letting you know.
I wouldn't do that.
We're talking swirly or like, something just completely immature high school. That's where we're going.
No, you're gonna think. Actually, you might look at it and say, you know what? From now on, I might just call in.
I can just remote in.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's very famous person that I have
love it.
In your seat there. So
I love it.
Hey, welcome to the Dave and Doc Show. I'm Dave.
And I'm Doc.
And Doc is remote today, so
I am remote.
Doc is in New Orleans. We normally record the show on Saturdays. And Doc, of course, and I don't blame him for this at all, went to New Orleans to watch the Final Four and was hoping to stay until Tuesday morning when he would be very happy on his way back. But unfortunately for him, it was a really good game. It's probably going to take you a little while to believe that it was a good game, but it was a really good game in the Final Four. But Duke did not advance to Monday night's championship game.
They did not, and I can't stand Carolina, so they just and of course that's Coach K's final game,
right?
But from the sports connoisseur, not that I'm a connoisseur, but from a sports lover's standpoint, you had to love that. I mean, too, because watching Kansas and Villanova first, and just watching how dominant Kansas was, and then, when it became time for Duke and Carolina, you could feel the difference in the Superdome. I mean, it was just this electric atmosphere. I mean, it was crazy. Like it was just one of those weird just moments where like, man, my senses are so different. You could just feel the different vibe from the moment it started. And I mean, what a game. I mean, it was incredible, and just so heartbreaking as a Duke fan for that to happen. And that's it. He walked off the court, and you'll never see Coach K walk off the court again.
Yeah, those are
in the coaching capacity.
And I mean those. And that's always tough. I mean, I watched Bill Walsh leave, after a Super Bowl.
Yes.
I watched Bobby Bowden leave, and it's just never the same after that. I mean, after a legendary coach, walks away, it's just never the same. I mean, even for North Carolina when Dean Smith left, and
absolutely.
And they had a great coach come in with Roy Williams, an absolute great coach.
Absolutely.
But not,
and kind of a different vibe when he retired, because he was kind of I guess he had planned it maybe, but it was just kind of one of those quick deals, and he was just like, no, this I decided for this to be my final season, kind of different.
Yeah.
Versus this, where that Duke team faced the pressure all year because this was his last year, and to have to stand up to that all year. I mean, you have to tip your cap to him. I mean, those are the majority of them. I think 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine. I mean, you get so frustrated, and you're like, well, there's Banchero, who's, I think he's 19 now, going up against Brady Manick, whom I can't stand. I mean, he's like a redneck Bill Walton from the 70s, that guy, and he's so whiny. That boy is so whiny. I was like, please get him out of the game. I like R.J. Davis, and I like Caleb Love, those other Carolina players. I mean, but that Manick, I can't stand him. But watching Banchero go against him, you're like, oh my goodness, he's manhandling him. It's like, well, that guy's got, Manick's like 22, 23.
Right.
I mean, there's a pretty decent difference when you get to that age range, from the time you're 18, 19, So Yeah, I think that gets lost. And then I think that was one of the recurrent themes that Coach K tried to say is, my team has grown up a lot, but they're still young and they're taking it hard and having trouble, just processing everything. And I thought he gave a great interview at the end of the game. I watched, of course, because I couldn't go to bed last night because I was so distraught. And I was just watching all that stuff and just complimenting them and obviously compliment Carolina because Carolina played a heck of a game. But it sucks as a Duke fan that you can't you don't get to stay for the next game and you don't get to see what might have been. But the way Kansas played and watching Kansas, I don't know that anybody's beaten.
I don't think anybody
Kansas.
wants to play Kansas right now. That is that
team
is something. I mean, they really turned it on in the tournament.
Yeah, they really have, and I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm bitter, and I'm not rooting for Carolina, but I tell you the way they played, right? The way that Kansas played in that Villanova game. I mean, I was pretty amazed. Even when they cooled off, I mean, they still. I think Nova got it to 5 at one point, but it was like they got it to 5, but it still just never felt like it was close. Like Kansas was just straight up a better team. I mean, wire to wire victors, double digit win. And I think that'll be interesting to see as we move forward. But we're down here and we're gonna tour New Orleans a little bit today, and I'm gonna go to Bourbon Street during the daytime because I've heard the stories about how the spot's a Pizza Hut in the daytime, and it is not a Pizza Hut at nighttime.
Right.
There are women hanging out, out the Pizza Hut doors.
I just
and
have
I don't
one.
think that's my spot.
I do have a question. I do have a question for you though. I mean, are you gonna take your shirt off? Are you gonna get some beads? I want to know.
No, not at this phase of life, man. Despite trying to remain somewhat physically fit, not to mention my oldest daughter, Callan. She gets very worked up if somebody takes their shirt off and their nipples are showing.
Oh yeah.
She saw a young gentleman running with one of the gator masks on the other day, like not a Florida gator, but you know what I'm talking about, like the bandit mask. And,
right.
And she said, "Hey, his shirt off and his nipples were showing. Oh my gosh!" so no, Daddy won't be doing any of that.
Well, I guess I should go ahead and put my shirt on then. I shouldn't have done the show.
Well, you are wearing 16 because I mean this is the 16th episode.
I am. I'm wearing
paying homage to the legendary Joe Montana.
That's right.
We'll get to that.
It's episode 16, and super excited because it's episode 16, the greatest quarterback to ever play, ever play, and it's a special episode. But speaking of special, I know that we've got So Landon did some more dad jokes, and he did 5 of them actually.
Oh my god!
And I think one of them he wrote himself. I'm not sure, but the rest.
So he's like really breaking it out.
He is.
That's awesome. He's trying. He's going for the jugular, man.
Yeah, he's like writing jokes. He's like other kids are out throwing ball and playing, and he's in his room writing jokes. So.
Well, here's what we'll do. I've got 2.
Okay.
Because so I'll do mine, and then if it segues fine, then we'll let him do his 5.
Okay.
And then I do have 2 funny stories to tell you about when we got here in New Orleans, and so we gotta share that. So yeah, but let me do mine.
Okay.
We'll get that.
Okay, you're gonna have to get a little closer to your microphone. You're a little too far away there.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
now?
yeah. There you are.
Okay. So with March Madness in mind, here are the dad jokes.
Okay.
What do you call it when Cinderella busts your bracket?
What?
March Sadness.
That's appropriate.
You like that one?
I did like that one. Yeah. That happened opening weekend for me, as a matter of fact.
It did. And then I've got one more. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I had a Florida State one, but there's no need to throw stones.
I appreciate that.
I'm in the glass house right now. All right. What does a basketball player do when he loses his eyesight?
What does a basketball player do when he loses his eyesight? What's that?
Become a referee.
That's 100% true for this tournament. There's absolutely no doubt.
Oh my gosh. They oh man, stuff they call terrible. I mean ticky-tack stuff, and then Keel's play there at the end when they were down 79-76, he drives lane. In the NBA, that's an and one.
Yeah.
There's enough continuation, but in college, they said it was on the floor, and of course he makes one free throw, misses the other one. Caleb Love makes two. It's 81-77 final score. In the NBA, he's got a chance to tie that game, and at the worst, you're coming out 81-78 with still a chance to shoot a three to try to tie it. So that was very disheartening to watch that. So anyway, the bitterness is abundant and it could be infinite,
right?
But it won't be. So let's let the prodigy let's let him drop his jokes.
Yeah. So this is Landon's joke. So again, as always, I recorded these, so my voice is in it. So I'll just shut up while he's talking. But yeah. Anyway, here's I don't think I need a whole lot of setup with these. So here's some jokes from Landon. All right, folks. Back by popular demand is my son Landon, who has once again decided to prove to us his comedic genius and put it on display with some more, as he calls them, dad jokes. Landon, are you ready, buddy?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Once again, Doc, just want to say your dad joke sucks. They're dumb compared
He's really
to these
taking this
jokes.
personal.
Okay.
Okay.
I have 5 of them.
He's declaring war.
Okay, 5 jokes.
War.
Joke number 1.
More than 3. Okay. Here's the first one.
Okay.
Where do superheroes shop?
Where do superheroes shop?
They shop at the supermarket.
Goodness gracious, son.
That was the one that came
At the quick sack.
That's the one you came up with?
That's
right. All right.
Okay.
Good. All right, number 2.
How do celebrities stay cool?
How do celebrities stay cool?
They have many fans.
Good Lord.
Okay.
All right, number 3.
Why did the picture go to prison?
I don't know why.
Because he was framed.
That's gracious. That was kind of funny. Okay.
I like that one. I like that one.
That one at least passes my test there.
Okay.
All right, so we're number 4.
What's a tornado's favorite game?
What's a tornado's favorite game?
Twister.
I knew it. I knew that was going to be the punchline there.
This one's super good.
All right, so this is number 5. This is the big finale here. All right, here we go. Number 5.
Okay. How does a hurricane see?
How does a hurricane see? I think I know this, but go ahead.
With one eye.
That was it. So, I'm not really sure.
Good, man.
Yeah, that's good Lord.
I love it. What I particularly liked about that was that he also said, instead of 3, I've got 5. So not only is he going for the gusto and the quality of the jokes, he's trying to have more.
Right.
So there's significant research going into this.
Right.
So he's trying.
I would love it if he would do his homework or something, but no, he's writing comedy for Dad. So
that's it. That's it, man. So two funny stories for you.
Okay.
From New Orleans, and then we'll get into what else is going on with the show today. And so we get down here to New Orleans, and we're staying at the Marriott. Well, there's like 3 Marriotts here in New Orleans, and not paying attention and being down in all the craziness. So we get in, and I mean it's nuts down on Canal Street and everything, and we're trying to get into the hotel. So finally we get in there. I mean, it took us like probably 25 minutes just to make it into the garage to get parked. So we get in there, and we're doing all this, and I realize, and my sister realizes, oh, this hotel is Nova Nation. everybody from Villanova is at this hotel.
Oh.
And I'm like, where in the world are we at? And so we go and check in. I mean, and it's all blue light up and craziness. And there, I mean, literally everybody Villanova is at, and it's the team hotel. And I'm like, I don't know that. I'm like, what's going on? So we go check in. So real quick, go check in. Oh, we're at the other Marriott, which is. Now, fortunately, I had given the valets a good tip. So he quickly went and got my car. But so there was relief on that part because it was like, oh my gosh, we're at Villanova's hotel. I just don't know that's going to be a good thing. Of course, it doesn't matter now because everybody could just drown their sorrows together.
That's true.
But then, of course, trying to get over to our hotel, which is actually near the convention center where the Fan Fest is at, trying to get over there. The traffic, of course, it ended up not being too bad. So we get over there. So we get to our hotel. We get checked in. Everything's perfect. We get to the game. We walk down Poydras Street, and I'm assuming that's how you say it. And it's just a cool atmosphere. So we get into the Superdome, which funny story going in there. This guy gets scared, go through the metal detector, and he's got his jewel. And they say, no, you can't have jewel, can't have a lighter, can't have metal like that inside the Superdome. And this is the Final Four.
Right.
And he's kind of got that rocker look to him and all this. He doesn't go through. It was more important for him to keep his jewel and not give that up than to go into the Final Four. And I was like, man, I would be like, anybody in the house have a piece of nicotine gum, I will buy it from you for $20. I want to watch the game. But no, his jewel was more important.
What a moron.
So there you go. I know. And I mean, right? I mean, what is that about? I was like, are you kidding me? It's the Final Four.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, my sister and I were just laughing because he was trying to talk the woman into. Because she was like, no, and he goes, yes, and she just looked at him and said, no, you can't bring that in.
Gosh.
So that was kind of funny. So then we get inside. It's a cool atmosphere again. We're inside. We're on the 300 level. Well, the signs for this are not very good, okay? So we're trying to walk around. We're getting our bearings down. Of course, I mean, there's 7 million people, 70,000 people, in seats, roaming around seats, trying to get places. It's a madhouse. So we get up to where we think the 300 level is for the seats because it says 300 level concourse. We go up in there, and I'm looking, and I'm like, well, these are all rooms with doors. And I'm like, I don't think I bought these tickets because I don't think we roll like that. So
I distinctly remember not bankrupting the family when I bought these tickets.
Right. I was like, I don't think this is right. So we're walking, and of course, we're again, it's like a stimulation out the yin yang.
Right.
So we go to our number, and I knocked on the door, and nobody came in. So I opened the door.
Right.
And it is this party, and there's seats. There's a couple rows of seats and everything, and I got 4 sets of eyes just looking at me, and they just completely stopped their conversation. And I said,
this is wonderful.
I said, I know that this is our number, and I said, this can't be right. I said, but this is the 300 level concourse, and the girl in the thing said, let me look at you. Oh no, this is. I don't remember what she said. This is not you. This is not you. And she, I mean, not very nice about it either. I mean, I was just like, hey, I don't mean any harm here. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. And so we got quickly escorted out of the out of the private suite, which the only thing that made me feel better about that because we were kind of laughing about it. But there were multiple other people from different teams that it was the same thing, and they were like, "What? How do you get here?"
Right.
Because it doesn't tell you. So it ended up you had to go to the 200 level and then go up steps to get to where you needed to be, and that was the only thing you had to do. But the only sign I saw that said it was a small sign, like in the middle of the stairwell, that said that's what you had to do. On the main concourse, it does not direct you to do that. So we went in a private booth, and we thought we were at Nova Nation Hotel, and I'm sitting there going, yep, like Applebee's on a date night, Bourbon Street steak and an Oreo shake, bougie. And I'm like, yeah, this is not me. This is not. So anyway, so we found our seats, which were still in, we were in the right section of the arena, but we were below that, obviously, because we had to pay for our food, and of course they ran out of burgers, they ran out of chicken tenders, they ran out of hot dogs, and for the people that enjoy a ice cold beverage, they ran out of beer before halftime.
They ran out
of the Duke game.
Yes. Was the Costco closed? I mean, how the hell do you run out of?
So the best thing ever. This guy, of course, he's from Duke, completely obliterated with his girlfriend. He's got his nails painted blue. I mean, this dude was like serious. I mean, like rock style spike hair, like I spike my hair, but he's like crazy spike. I'm just trying to get. I'm trying to get some waters. We had eaten, and then I'd gotten my Diet Coke, and my sister got a Coke, and and I was like, man, my head's killing me. I haven't had much water today. Blah blah. So I'm just trying to get waters. Which they did have water. Thank God.
They had a hose. They had a hose hanging down from the 500 level.
Right, that's it. I'm like, are y'all filling out? I feel just recycling these Dasani bottles. What are you doing? And he's like, so you're telling me? And he's swaying, because of course he's inebriated, that I paid this money to come to the Final Four in New Orleans. He goes, in New Orleans, right? And the guy's just laughing, because he knows what's up. He goes, and y'all ran out of beer before halftime. He goes, really? He goes, oh my, then he gets expletive.
Right. Yeah.
And so this other dude that my sister saw, he was like one of the going through the stands, and he had like the portable beer, whatever. And he like got mauled because people were just trying to get a sip of that juice, So yeah, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Crazy. I can't believe they ran out. I mean, they
ran out. How poor? Yeah.
I mean,
now they were finding hot dogs from somewhere. I don't know.
Maybe the Villanova fans. Maybe the Villanova fans at halftime drank all the beer. Maybe that's what happened.
I mean, ran out before halftime of a Final Four game. Yeah, before halftime.
So
yeah,
here's
not that they quit selling it; they just ran out.
It's I've always wanted to go to the Final Four, and I just haven't. I don't know why I haven't. I mean, it's been close a couple of times for me, but
you're just waiting for that perfect opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because I watch it every year, of course, and I like to stay for the national championship game, but I always wondered. I mean, let's say Kentucky was, let's just say I'm a Villanova fan. Well, that's game one. I mean, am I going to stay for game two if my team lost game one? Like that would just, I don't know. I don't know how I would handle that. If it was four teams that I didn't really like or not my favorite teams, then I'd stay for all of it. But I mean, if it was the Final Four, if the NFC and AFC championship game were played in one stadium and the Niners played first and lost, I would not stick around for the AFC championship, so.
And that actually happened because I think they actually offered like single game tickets. Of course, we just bought everything. So I was like, well, I want to see all the games. Sure. If we're going. Of course, we're not going to see the championship game now because I can't stomach to watch that. But so the Villanova section, which for the game we were above where the Villanova section was on the floor, and a lot of those people got up and left. I mean, it was like a huge traffic jam on the lower level trying to get the Carolina people in, who I'm assuming either bought tickets from the Nova people or whatever happened. But it was like a trade out after that game. Like I said, it was a big old traffic jam, which was crazy.
That's interesting.
Which was crazy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I think there are ways to do that. Of course, like I said, we bought the whole thing because I wanted to see both games. And glad we got to do that. And then, of course, was hopeful to stay until be leaving on Tuesday, but not so much. So on to more positive things. It's show 16.
It's show 16. It's show 16, and I've got a little thing I want to play here. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's like 2 hours long, but I thought maybe just a minute or so. of
Yes.
and and for this is what we used to call bad radio because the video won't be on the video part of the podcast, but the audio will be there so you can listen to it. But it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just kind of a little homage to the greatest quarterback that's ever played, Mr. Joe Montana from Monongahela, Pennsylvania. So just indulge me here a little bit just for a minute or so, if you would.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Here we go.
Until that comeback, Joe Montana was a rumor.
At the 49er, 11-yard line. He goes up.
This is New Orleans and San Francisco.
35 to 30.
It was 35-7. And then Joe became Joe.
That's Dwight Clark with a lot of real estate. And the 49ers, Jim Hill, are right back in this football game. Blitz from the left side. Joe Montana goes to Freddie Solomon. Touchdown, San Francisco. 28 unanswered points.
It is long enough. It is good. The greatest comeback the 49ers have made.
When you think of Joe Montana, you think of fourth quarter comebacks.
This guy is magic.
What about Joe Montana and the reasoning behind picking him?
Well, he's been in a great program and had great success. He's intelligent and has a certain amount of size and movement, and he throws the ball well. He just had a good combination that we were always looking for.
Solomon in motion. Here's Montana looking. Solomon touchdown. Has the ball, play action fake to Patton. Throws his pass, caught by Clark. He's alone down the near sideline, the 40, the 50, cuts out to the field at the 40. He's on his way to the 30.
This was against the Cowboys in the regular season.
Touchdown for San Francisco's Dwight Clark.
Montana with the ball. End zone. Touchdown. There's 37 seconds left. Montana. End zone. Touchdown. Charlie Young.
Last season, the 49ers won only 6 games. This season, they have the best record in the NFL. Yet no one outside the Bay Area knows who these guys are. The no-name Niners.
I love it.
The football 49ers stand just 2 steps away from a Super
And of course,
Bowl
the game
title.
that we all remember.
And Bill Ring is in here now, along with Earl Cooper. Solomon in motion, picked up by Dennis Thurman. Montana throwing short to Solomon, who goes over.
The unbeatable Dallas Cowboys.
And the catch.
Cooper in motion. Elliott stays in the block. And throwing in the end zone. Dallas, as you can see, has ruined some great San Francisco dreams in the past.
We're going to call a sprint option. He's going to break up and break into the corner. Okay. You got it? Dwight will clear.
For the upstart 49ers.
I love it.
They're 6
Here it
yards
comes.
away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone. Dwight Clark. It's a madhouse at Candlestick.
There are few games, if any, in NFL history which were as seminal.
It was the beginning of the end for the Dallas Cowboys as we knew them with Tom Landry coaching.
Anyway, so that was it.
Final little slam on those Cowboys.
Yeah, I had to let that last piece play there for sure because screw the Cowboys.
Pretty
Yeah.
awesome. And again, sports lore. I mean, what a legend, and the ultimate. I mean, the ultimate winner, no doubt, and it just that's. It's just one of those are those moments. Of course, if you're a Dallas fan, you're just ripped to shreds on that. You're 49ers fans, like that's amazing, and it is one of the most endearing, plays just in general in terms of clutch football on both ends. Because what a catch, of course, and Dwight Clark may he rest in peace.
Yeah, and that was and again that was I love it was the beginning of the end for the Dallas Cowboys. That's my favorite part of that. But
I figured that's why you got that later roll.
But what was funny, I heard a story about Joe Montana. It's a long story, but the main part of the story was they were talking about it was Bill Romanowski, and Romanowski was talking about what Joe Montana was like, off the field, like, after the game and whatever. And they're like, he was a boring guy. Like, he just, like, he didn't party.
He's all business.
Yeah,
he's
was
all
like,
business.
It's like he didn't party. He was funny. Like, he always had jokes and all this stuff. They said, jovial guy, but like, he just didn't really hang out and do anything. Like, he was, he said just kind of a boring guy. But I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a quarterback that's just got, categorized as or characterized as just boring. So
it's just being totally boring. That's crazy.
Yeah.
He was all business. It was just about him winning. He just wanted to win.
That's right. It was
pretty cool stuff. Man.
Yeah, but it is show 16, so Joe Montana
had to have that.
Absolutely.
This Joe, if you're listening out there, this show's for you.
And I'm wearing this stupid jersey that's 1,000 degrees right now. but I had to do it.
I was gonna say it's a little warm.
It's not
warm.
Comfortable for sure.
Okay, but
even though over there in your chair right now, you look really comfortable in your chair. I just want to tell you that.
Sweet.
I can't wait for you to see the video.
I'm excited.
So kind of an abbreviated show today, of course.
You got the interview.
That's
the
right.
Interview.
So so we just don't BS the fans here. I talked to Marissa yesterday. So we're gonna play that in just a second. And a little bit about Marissa Bridge. She was married to Alan Bridge, who was the gentleman that started the Apology Line back in the 1980s, and actually kept it going till 1995 when he was in a jet ski accident and passed away. But it was a phone line, and he put these flyers all over Manhattan, and you called this phone line, and the answering machine message was, he called himself Apology, like his name was Apology, and you were able to call and apologize for something that you have done. And I mean, some people apologize for small stuff, even to the point where a self-proclaimed serial killer started calling the show, and then he started playing them back. And even as an art project, he had like there was a museum, and you could go into a phone booth and listen to these messages as like an art project. He was well ahead of his time, though. I mean, really, this was something that people are trying to do things like this now. But anyway, it was a podcast that was on still on Apple Podcast from Wondery, and it's like 6 or 7 episodes, I want to say, and it kind of just details or chronicles the whole story of the Apology Line, and I was fascinated by it. And I'm like, hopefully maybe we can get Marissa on the show. And sure enough, she was gracious enough to do that. So yeah, had a good chance to talk with her, and had a pretty extended conversation with her for sure.
That's awesome. Strong work on that, man. Strong work.
Yeah, it was. It's a lot of fun to talk with her. So for you folks watching on YouTube right now, I'll throw up some pictures of Marissa and Alan and some Apology Line quote unquote stuff, but no video on the interview. So Marissa, and I think so too. I think a lot of times some of the video they don't sound as good, so we decided to do it over cell phone. But anyway, we will play that right now. Well, folks, we're very fortunate and privileged to have Marissa Bridge on the line with us this morning, and I've wanted to talk to Marissa now for probably a couple of years. Marissa, first of all, how are you doing? Thank you for being on the show.
I'm great. Thank you for asking. I'm great. I'm enjoying this sunny, cold day in Long Island.
That's right. We were just talking about the weather and how for some reason Knoxville is cold right now, but later today it'll probably be in the 80s. I was the story about this. I was listening to another podcast on Wondery, I forget, and I heard the trailer for the Apology Line, and I was getting out of my car and I heard it, and I'm like, the Apology Line. Wait a minute, that sounds familiar to me. And I can't tell you where I actually heard this when I was a kid. I want to say it was on David Letterman, but I don't remember. I remember some talk show host because I was the third of 3 boys, so my my parents just kind of let me stay up way too late. So I was watching a lot of late night TV. And I remember a talk show host talking about this. And I'm like, what is the apology line? And, I saw it and I didn't know a lot about it. And then when I heard the trailer for the apology line, it like triggered something. And I'm like, what is that? And so, I go and of course listen to the podcast. I'm like, oh, I remember hearing about this and it was absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy that you're here now because I know millions and millions of people listen to that. And some that didn't know anything about the apology line. But, I mean, does it come up every day with you now? I mean, is this something you have to talk about all the time?
Strangely, I don't. I was really glad you asked me to do this podcast because I had done so many interviews last year, but since the beginning of 2022, I really haven't talked to anybody about it. Except, my husband and certain people involved in the podcast world that are helping me work on another season on a different platform. But no, I haven't. I don't talk about it because it's so long ago. And I only have a few close friends that Alan and I knew back then. And a lot of people in my world today, which is 20-something years old already since Alan died. So we don't talk about it now. And I had, I'm just going to say I have two stepsons that I met when they were 1.5 and 5, and they knew nothing about it. I never talked about it at home until the youngest one was out of high school, because I didn't want them to get confused. And also there's so much darkness in there. I just didn't want to bring it into our home. Frankly,
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, that's so. I mean, you were married to Alan, so how long were you with him, even if before you guys were married or whatever, before you knew that he wanted to start this project or before he started the project?
Well, I was with Alan for 15 years and we were married 11 years, but I met him a month after he started the apology line. So it was part of our relationship from day one, which is one of the reasons why I lived with it for the entire time I was with him, because he came as Mr. Apology into my life.
Right. And just to hear you say that, I mean, because I remember listening to the tapes on the podcast, and just when people would call the apology line, they would they pretended they were talking to somebody and they would say, apology. I mean, they would call him Apology. And I thought that's so interesting. And I mean, do you ever go back and like listen to the tapes or anything now? Or is have you just kind of buried that part of your life?
Oh, no, the tapes are very alive and very much a part of my life. That's the one part of all of this, of bringing Alan's work back to the public, that I haven't really done yet. And that's what I hope to do in the next podcast, is play some of the recordings, because as you touched on, there was such a connection between Alan, who was only known as Mr. Apology. He was totally anonymous, as were the callers, but there was a connection in the telephone. And the people that called really began to trust Alan and feel comfortable with him. And they talked about some of their deepest, darkest secrets and problems. And I think it was because he took it so seriously and took such good care of the line, and really was available to the line 24/7 for 15 years. So people responded to that commitment that he showed.
Yeah. And I mean, that just in some of the tapes that you played, that it certainly showed that it was something he had, a lot of passion about. And I'm going to, and since we just kind of jumped into this, but I'm going to try to explain what the apology line was, and then you tell me how bad I butchered it. And and we'll go from there. But the apology line was, I think it started in 1980. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So it started in 1980, and essentially it started as an answering machine that you could basically call and apologize for anything you've done. I mean, if you stole a Snickers bar, if you stole a car, or if you if you cheated on a spouse or, whatever you did, all the way up to something horrible, like if you've committed murder, which we'll talk about later. Anything that you've done, you can just call, leave a message, and apologize for. Am I getting it close to what it was about?
Yes, absolutely. You got it.
So, and it was just this phenomenon that and I pulled up a really cool picture, and I don't know if it's a real picture or not of what looks to be the typical thing. You write your phone number on, vertically, and you stick it on a lamppost or something, and it has the number to call apology, and like something you would hang up at a college, to say, hey, I need a roommate, grab a number. And just looking at that, I'm like, that's really cool, because that was, something that was probably posted all over Manhattan and everywhere in 1980. What do you think? I mean, with Alan, I kind of got fascinated just hearing about him, because he seemed to be very passionate about, as you mentioned, of this project. What do you think was his driving force and like his passion for this kind of a project? Because this is not something that everybody does, because people that want to be famous, they do different things, right? They get on the radio, they start a podcast, or they're a stand-up comedian, or they get into, some form of media that's in front of people. This was, really, really based on anonymity both ways. What do you think his passion was for this project that kind of drove him to continue to do it?
Well, Alan was a self-confessed shoplifter most of his life, from an adolescent until right before he started the apology line. So he always kind of had a toe in crime, in minor crime. And he was always fascinated with crime and criminals. And he was an artist. He started out as a painter. And after that, he started doing machines. And the machines had a moral story behind them. Like one was called the Cooperation Machine, and one was called Attention Must Be Paid. And the last one that he did was called Crime Time. And it was a machine made out of plexiglass, and you spun a wheel of chance, and you put your hand into this tube, and you either your hand got caught in there for 30 seconds, meaning you got caught committing a crime, or you didn't get caught and a marble dropped out that you could keep, and that meant you got away with your crime. And Alan, yeah, it's pretty amazing. I still have the machine. It's quite remarkable.
That's awesome.
So Alan said that was a veiled confession of his own criminality, and he felt much better after making that machine, and he cut down drastically on his shoplifting. I won't say he completely stopped, because I know he slipped a couple of times over the years, but basically he stopped. And after that success, he felt like he wanted to make a machine that would help other people with their crimes, so they could turn over a new leaf, get over it, as he did. And like I said, I met him a month after he started the line. So I don't know exactly when the light bulb went off in his head, but he decided that, using a telephone and an answering machine and having people call in and confess to crimes would help them. And that's as simple as that. And he put up posters around Manhattan on October 20th, 1980, and right away the phone started ringing, and it never stopped for 15 years, and only got bigger and bigger every day, every week, every month, every year. It just kept growing. And he was absolutely fascinated with the calls that came in, the people. I think when you really kind of delve into listening to all the audio, it's really all of humanity calling. Back then, psychotherapy was a kind of a new thing. Like, most people couldn't afford it, and I mean, it was out there, but it was expensive, and your average person could not afford that. So it was either like the Catholic priest, or like, talk to your friends, or the apology line, which was free. And so many people from all over the United States and even all over the world used it as, therapy, as confession, as a place to brag and lie even, and make up stories. And it really ran the gamut of all of humanity, and everything that's going on inside of us came out on the apology line. And I think that even though it became a very heavy burden for him to carry, he could not give it up. because, I mean, he was just felt really like tied to people.
That's interesting. You mentioned like the therapeutic part of that too, because I think that's really true. One of the things that drew me to radio is because I'm just fascinated with people in general. Just in general. You know, I'm the guy that sits at the mall and watches people, right? So, I mean, like, I'm the guy that, like, just wants to know what people are doing. And when I was doing radio, I would love interviewing people. I love to just to hear their story, to learn more about people. It drives my family crazy because I don't meet a stranger. You know, I mean, we can be at the airport waiting to hop on a flight, and I've, made 3 friends while we're sitting at the gate. But it's
I love that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's great.
So, I think that was one of the things that when I listened to this series, it's like this guy's a kindred spirit of mine, because I mean, I get that. Like, and it's not, it's not a thing where you're nosy or gossipy or something, it's not like you just want to know secrets from people, but you're just very interested in people in general. And I think that really came out just from listening to the few tapes that were played, during the series. But one of the things is, that I've always wondered is, so you were with him for the duration of this. When you first heard about it, what was your first response? I mean, did you think it was a crazy idea, or did you think it was a fad that would go away and something he just wanted to work on for a couple of months, or what was your initial reaction to that?
Well, when he first told me about it, the night we met, I really did not understand what he was talking about. Honestly, I didn't have an answering machine. I didn't know anyone that had an answering machine. It was new technology back then. So I know it's hard to believe how far we've come.
Oh, right,
but,
right.
I didn't know. And, the first couple weeks we were together, we were not thinking about the apology line. We started a new relationship, and we kind of had an instant connection, and we were just together all the time. But a funny story is that about 2 weeks after we met, Alan invited me to dinner with a friend of his, a journalist named Henry Allen, who at the time was working for the Washington Post. And he was going to write an article about the apology line, which I didn't know any of this. Alan just said, I want you to meet a couple of my friends. So we went out to dinner, 4 of us, Alan's roommate, Yuri, and Henry Allen and myself, and we're having a really nice time. And then Henry Allen turned to me and said, so what do you think of the apology line? And I said to him, what's that? Like, I really didn't, I had no clue, really. I wasn't thinking about it in terms of Alan. I was just having fun with him.
Right.
So I was so embarrassed, and then they all started laughing. I got really embarrassed, and someone said, well, that's Alan's new project, that I'm going to write about. And I was like, oh gosh, I really blew it. But we survived it, and I made it my business then to really learn what the line was about. And I made Alan play some tapes for me, because that's really the only way to understand it. And once he played tapes for me from those first months, I got it right away. And I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard in my life, because I was raised Catholic. I went to 12 years of Catholic school, and confession was a big part of my life.
Sure.
You had to go once a month. And in high school, I think we slacked off a bit, but still you had to go regularly.
Right.
And I had never heard anyone else's confessions except my own. And to hear these people bearing their souls and talking about what they were talking about blew my mind. Honestly, I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. And I just, of course I encouraged him to keep doing it. I thought it was important and amazing, and a doorway into the psyche that had never been opened before by anyone.
Yeah, it's fascinating to listen to some of the tapes. I mean, it really is. I mean, under the cloak of anonymity, people just calling in and confessing to things. And like we were talking about earlier, some of the things were pretty small. And then as it goes on, I mean, some people are confessing to things that are pretty, horrendous. It's just amazing. And it was at a time where no one worried about, the call being traced, or nobody worried about, well, if they're going to be able to use software to match my voice with recordings that they do from, the street or something. And it was just in my mind, it was a more innocent time for people to be able to call in and do that sort of thing. It's amazing. And I know it started, I'm sure it started, somewhat small, but it gained a lot of traction really fast. When did Alan decide to actually start playing the tapes back in broadcast form and commentating on them?
Well, he did that in January of 1983, and he was able to do that because of the advancing technology in answering machine design. For all you tech nerds out there, which is, technology is honestly a really important part of this project, and the advances in technology play a huge role in it. But when Alan first started the line on the outgoing message, he said, "I will play these tapes to the public at a future date." So everyone that called in left a message and hoped to hear it at some point, but they couldn't hear their messages or anyone else's messages. But in January of 1983, the technology of the answer machine changed, and the outgoing message could be longer. That was the key. So he was able to make a program on the outgoing message tape where it says, "Hello, my name is Joe, leave a message." He could say, "Hello, this is the apology line, and here is a program of the last 2 weeks' confessions." And then you can leave your message after that. So that was a big game changer, because that way people could hear the calls and not have to go to a museum. In all honesty, probably none of the real callers went to the new museum in New York City to hear the calls. They weren't, real people aren't necessarily going to go to an art museum and feel comfortable going in and going into a phone booth, and it's all, she, and hearing that. And Alan was very aware of it. And he thought as soon as he could, he wanted to bring the work directly to the people. And that's why the phone technology improvement was so important to him. So from then on, there was a call and response, and a community was born where you could hear the calls from the previous 2 weeks and leave a message. And you could respond to someone's call. And if Alan put that on, then that person who you were speaking to could speak back to you. And that's when it really, really took off. And I think that's when it had the most impact. When you create a community and people can relate to each other, that's when a lot of good stuff happens, when healing happens, comments, criticisms, praise, everything else. And when what you're saying is going to be heard by people is also very important. That it's just not going out into the void, but it's actually going to be played, hopefully, to your peers.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And when he started doing that, and so when he started playing like some of the calls, and he would commentate on some of the calls too. Did you worry about any backlash he might get at that point? Because it's one thing to let people just anonymously leave messages, and it's another thing to play those messages. But when you actually start commentating on them, did you worry that like this I don't like where this is going, or what? Did you think, oh, this is a great idea? But because you start worrying about anytime you broadcast anything, and Lord knows I know this because I've said enough dumb stuff on the air. But you worry about people coming after you or being upset because there's some, as there's some nut jobs out there.
Well, the technology back then was so rudimentary. It was very, very difficult to trace a call. You had to get police permission to trace a call. So especially the early years. So no, we weren't very worried about that. As is mentioned in the Wondery podcast, in 1981, a guy called Bernie threatened to kill Alan. And that was very worrisome for us. And Alan went and got a shotgun and improved all the locks on our apartment door and the building entrance downstairs. But nothing ever came of that. And so, no, we really weren't worried because it was very hard for people to find us. The only time people actually found our address was in the 90s, like 93, 94, these people called phone hackers came to be, mostly young people who figured out how to get into the new phone technology where it was a touch-tone keypad, and the touch-tone keypad gave entrance to hackers. And a couple of times hackers came to our door and were buzzing the buzzer, and they wanted to meet Mr. Apology, and they were young kids. And I would go down. I didn't want him to go down. I would say, look, we live here, please go away. And they always did. So we weren't really that afraid of anything on the line, of people come to get us. Because, I think people understood that Alan was doing a service, a free service. And I think people respected that. And they didn't, I think if there were issues, and there were a lot of issues, they dealt with it on the line. Alan would deal with it on the line itself.
Yeah. That's interesting, because it's sometimes people just want to meet somebody too. They hear the voice forever, and they just want to meet that person. So as the calls progressed, and people continue to call in, if I'm not mistaken, there was a serial killer, right, that called in, or someone who claimed to be a serial killer.
Yes, you're speaking about Richie.
Yeah,
who
Richie.
was
Okay.
Yes, a self-confessed serial killer, and he called for 5 years, from 84 to 89. And Alan had a long, obsessive relationship with him.
Yeah. Did they? So did they actually meet in person? I'm fuzzy. I don't remember. I want to say like they were trying to find a time to meet somewhere in the podcast, but I can't remember. Did they actually ever meet?
No, they never met, but what they did was he started calling. I'll give a little bit of background. Richie started calling in 84 and said he would induce gay men to his home and then kill them. And he said he'd killed 14, and then another year later he said he'd done a couple more. And Alan became, and when Richie left a message, it sounded so real. He would describe in detail how he picked the person up, what they looked like, where he put them in his home, what he did to them, how they died. I mean, in gross detail.
And details that nobody would know. I mean, essentially, unless they'd actually done the crime, right?
Right, incredible detail.
Right,
and that's what Alan and all of us were hooked in by, because his detail was really unbelievable, and his voice was sort of monotone and matter of fact, which we came to understand is typical of a serial killer. Like, there's not a lot of emotion in the way they speak about their crimes. So Alan tried for a couple of years to get Richie to give him proof, not proof like a finger or anything, but like a dog tags, or because he said he'd killed sailors that came in for Fleet Week in New York, or different ways that wouldn't involve harming someone, but proof nonetheless. And Richie would always be very evasive, but he kept going. So in 1987, Alan decided to try to get the police involved, and the New York City Police Department was not interested, because they said, you don't have any proof, and this is a crazy phone line, you're crazy, we don't want any part of it. But one day I was home and I was watching a daytime talk show, and I saw this man being interviewed who was a New York City detective, and his name was Ray Pierce. And I heard him speak, and I said to Alan, you got to get in touch with that guy. That guy might help you. And sure enough, Alan got in touch with him, and Ray agreed to, on the side, investigate the case. Not an official New York City, case, but on his own time. So they investigated Richie for 2 years, and it was Ray Pierce's idea to have Alan get Richie to engage in conversations off of the apology line, like on our personal phone line. And that way they could possibly trace the calls and find out where Richie lived. And they did that. And Alan and Richie spoke privately for about 1.5 years, and we have hours and hours of tape conversations between them. And they found out where Richie lived, and they put his house under surveillance, but they could not really figure out if he was really telling the truth or not. And the whole thing came to a head, and this is where the truth separates from what I was told, but in 1989, Alan was getting very, very frustrated with Richie. And he said, I'm going to find him myself. And he told me that he was going to Times Square and he was going to look for Richie and, get him himself. And he did that. He didn't find Richie. And he told Richie over the line, I went to Times Square looking for you. And I said to Alan, why did you do that? Now he's not going to go to Times Square anymore. And Richie never called again. And
Wow.
That's all I knew until we did the podcast interviews in 2020. And we interviewed Ray Pierce. And Ray Pierce told us that the police actually had brought Richie in for questioning in 1989. He was living out of state at the time. And so Ray had to get some friends in an adjacent state. It wasn't really a kosher, thing to do, but he got it done because that's the kind of man he is. And they questioned Richie for hours, and they determined that he was what they call a serious fantasist, meaning he believes it in his mind. He goes through all the details in his mind. He commits the acts in his mind. And over the years, he just adds more and more detail and relives it, but he didn't actually do it. Now, those people can go on to make the crime, do the things that they're talking about, the murders that they're fantasizing about. But they thought in Richie's case that he hadn't actually done the crimes. And furthermore, they had no proof. And the way that Richie acted during the interview, his nervousness, his sweating, there's certain signs that they thought, nah, he didn't really do it. So Ray said he told Alan all this back in 1989, but Alan never told me or anyone that
Wow.
Richie had been brought in. I was gobsmacked when I found this out in 2020. I had no idea. And Alan had kept this a secret from everybody.
That's interesting. Why do you think he kept it a secret?
I think he was embarrassed and ashamed, probably, that he spent 5 years of his life chasing this guy and he wasn't for real. That's the only thing I can think of. And the interesting thing is, I interviewed Ray Pierce in the year 2000, 5 years after Alan died, because someone was trying to do a documentary on the apology line back then. And when we interviewed Ray Pierce then, he didn't mention this, but he mentioned it in 2020. And I think it's because the statute of limitations had run out.
Yeah.
And he could talk publicly about it for the first time.
How about that?
But that's my guess about why. And I was honestly so shocked. I could not believe he kept that from me.
Yeah,
But
that's
did.
interesting because I mean he was I mean if you listen to the series on Wondery, I mean he was clearly fascinated. I mean like you use the word obsessed, and I would say that too. I mean he was fascinated and obsessed with this guy, and a big part of the series that you did on Wondery is about Richie, and that's interesting too that he talked to him like outside of the apology line too, and you said they talked for over a year.
Yes, they did.
Wow.
And I have all the recordings, which would make a great, season on a podcast itself to go just totally into Richie, because it's amazing. It's amazing material. It really is.
That is amazing. I'll subscribe to that. I would definitely like to listen to that. My own curiosity. Now, Alan, of course, died in it was 95, right? It's August of 95. And this was
Yes.
he was hit by somebody on a jet ski. Is that right?
Yes, he was. There were witnesses there. There was a young couple who witnessed the accident, and apparently Alan was scuba diving in an area that was not legal to scuba dive in. It was a place called the Shinnecock Inlet in Long Island. And the Shinnecock Inlet is a narrow, body of water between the Atlantic Ocean and Shinnecock Bay. And it's an opening for boats to go in and out to the ocean, fishing boats, pleasure boats, jet skis, you name it. It's like an expressway, so to speak.
Right.
And there were rocks on either side, the jetty to hold the ocean at bay. And there's a lot of great fish. The fish hang out there, and there's lobsters in the cracks of the rock. So it was a great place to scuba dive. Although very dangerous. And I told Alan to stop diving there. But he would never listen to me. He'd been diving there for 20 years. And that particular day, he was coming up from a dive. And as he was coming up, a jet ski hit him.
Jeez.
And it was an accident. I mean, the person couldn't have known that a scuba diver was coming up right in front of them. Alan was not diving with a diving flag. He never did that, which is also against the law. But nevertheless, that's how he did it. And so that's what happened. Yeah.
So, a life definitely cut short. What do you think, if you could look into what would have been the potential future of the apology line, where do you think it would be today? Do you think he would still be doing it today?
I do. I think if he hadn't died, I think he would have kept it going until whenever his end came. He would be 77 now. But he was planning to go on the internet at the end of his life. There was I don't know if it was like a website as we think of a website today, but there was a way to put the material out there. His work had been on a bulletin board. If those of you people who real techies know what that is.
Right.
I don't really know what that is, but it was a way to put some text up, very rudimentary text,
right,
so people could read it. There was an apology line bulletin board for a while. Then they took it down, and Alan was preparing some kind of website when he passed away. But I think he would have gone, eagerly into the internet age, and kept going with it. He had been publishing a magazine for 2 years, and when he died, the magazine was finally breaking even. And I think he would have continued with that, and then had a web presence. I think he would have kept it going. And I think that the technology kept improving over these last 20-something years, where it could have been a real viable part of our culture at this point. An apology line that had been well established for decades.
I don't know if you've seen it, but there is. It's funny because I do what I call every once in a while this YouTube rabbit hole. I look something up on YouTube, and then there's another video that says, "Oh, that looks interesting." And then 2 hours later, I realize I've been sitting there watching videos on YouTube, and I ran into a channel on YouTube where someone has a microphone that you walk up to. It's videoed, of course. So you're looking at the back of the person, and they walk up to the microphone, and they either apologize, confess, or just say something they've never said out loud. And it was the first thing I thought about when I saw it. I'm like, this is where maybe the apology line would have went had Alan still been alive.
Yeah, it's possible. There's a lot of different things like that, and people have tried to start apology lines, exactly like the way Alan did it over the years, and he would have been okay with that. I think he felt like it was an idea that was important and that people needed the service. But I've seen that video also. But a lot of things don't last because you really need an operator of the system who cares and who kind of monitors it and adds feedback to it. And every single one of the things I've seen hasn't had that. So for me, I think that's an important aspect of it, is having the human interaction, or having someone who's like, kind of running things and overseeing it and interacting with the callers. I think that's very important. But there are different different ways that the service is still functioning today.
Yeah. Do you think that, for me, and this is the only word that comes to mind right now, but doing it via video seems to cheapen it is not the word, but that's the only word that comes to mind. And again, I'm a radio guy, so I'm all about audio. But there's something about just the audio, and just listening to the audio to me is more appealing than someone doing it via video.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something really important about the voice. I know there's someone in Brooklyn, in New York, who really took Alan's poster word for word and postered up New York City in like 2012 or something. but his apology line was just, you type it in, you write an email.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that is the same thing. I agree with you about the voice. I mean, I feel like speaking something out loud is an important component in apologizing or in confessing. I mean, it's one thing to write it or, to say it in a video where your back is turned, but the voice has so much nuance and so much, you can just hear so much of a person's personality and even to get spiritual, like their soul, when you listen to their voice. And I think there's nothing like it. I think when you just have audio, you can just concentrate on the person's voice and your mind can imagine whatever you want to imagine when you're listening, but it's a very special experience.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, that's when we first started the podcast, we weren't interested in doing it on video at all, because we just wanted to have some fun with it. And from years of being on radio, there's no video involved. And then we actually did start putting the podcast on YouTube as well, and a lot of people watch it. But for me, one of the reasons I love podcasts so much is for what you just said. I mean, I'm imagining what the person looks like. I'm imagining, the story in my mind. And for me, it's, I always joke with people. I'm a big Audible fan. I don't read books anymore. I have to have them read to me. But I love that. Like, I'm listening to an old Stephen King book right now. And I mean, like in my mind, all the characters have come alive, so so
yeah.
A video to me would just kind of cheapen that a little bit. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, the way the world is now with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, video is an important part of whatever you want to do, for better or for worse. And that's just a promotional tool, that people love visual things. They love to look at things. But I think that primarily, especially in this case of an apology line, it has to be just audio. I'm really, I really believe in that. Based on years of experience.
Right.
I lived with it for so long that it's not I'm just saying that, but I really believe it to be true because I've experienced it.
I would say you're the leading expert when it comes to that, 100%. So give me a little bit of, what are you working on now? I mean, this podcast came out in 2020 from Wondery, the apology line.
2021, January of 2021.
2021, that's right.
Yeah.
So what new things are you working on now?
Well, we have a lot of great things coming up. We are not working with Wondery anymore, and that's a whole nother long story, but we're going to be working with a new company, and they're giving us free reign to kind of do what we want, which is to play Alan's archive. So I'm not going to name them yet. We haven't signed our contract, but we've been in negotiations for many, many months, and we're very close to the end. I mean, if you want to talk shop after this, we can totally do that. But
sure, yeah.
So there's that, and there's also been a lot of interest in doing a television show. So that's something that's becoming more and more likely as time goes on too. So
a television show that would play the audio from this, or
no, it would be a
like a series based on
a fictionalized series.
Yeah,
yes,
okay,
yes,
okay.
It would be a series based on it. So that's enough. I mean, that's a lot that's been going on, and in the meantime, I'm still doing my art. I'm an artist as well, and and living life basically.
That's, but I do think it's great that the apology line just doesn't go away. So it stays out there, because I think it was such an important thing, and I mean, Alan was in a lot of ways way ahead of his time, right? I mean to start something like this when he did in the 1980s, just to have this idea, just and bring it to life like he did. I mean, I hope the story never goes away.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Yes, I think that I kept Alan's work alive all these years, over 20 years, because I really believed that it needed to get back out into the public eye. When he died, the line shut down and that was it. But I think that there's so much meaning in the line for people today. And I think that, the world is so divided and our country is so divided. And I think that the apology line can bring people together, because we may have our superficial differences, but under the surface, we have all the same problems, the same desires, the same needs, the same pains, the same hurts. And I think it's time that we get together in a big way. We really need that. We need some healing. And, the apology line isn't pretty. There's a lot of difficult subjects and a lot of darkness. And that's certainly part of our life today. But the only way to heal and to come together is to get into that mud and figure it out. And that's what I think the reason is why people are responding so strongly to it today.
Yeah, I think I agree with all those points. I think you're absolutely right. I was fascinated with it when I heard about it as a kid, and of course, I grew up in Virginia, so we were lucky to even have electricity. But
Alan grew up in Virginia also.
That's right. He was from Falls Church, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right. Yeah, I grew up in the southwestern part of Virginia, right in the tip of Virginia, toward the Tennessee side. There's not a Tennessee side of Virginia. I guess that's the dumbest thing I've ever said. But it's Virginia and Tennessee line, right? Yeah. So we called it. If you're from Virginia, you called it toward the Tennessee side. That's kind of what you said.
That makes sense.
But I grew up there, and there was a lot of media that we didn't get. And I really feel like I missed out. I was a big Howard Stern fan. I grew up with all these people that I wanted to know more about, and Alan was one of them, from the apology line. And honestly, of course, I kind of forgot about it for years. And I was so glad that the podcast happened, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember this. I really, so I really dived in and was excited. And I could probably listen to those tapes, as you probably have. I could probably listen to those tapes for days and days and just listen to the different people calling in. It's probably absolutely amazing.
It is amazing, and it's 15 years, so it'll take you some time. But there are. It's so fascinating, because there are narratives that come in and out, and current events float in and out, and people's problems. Someone becomes a focus, and their problems, kind of coalesce, and all the callers coalesce around that person. And then there's some resolution, and that fades away, and another person's problems become important. And then there's all these little one-off calls interspersed all in among that. So I didn't actually listen to the calls all the way through, all the program tapes, until 2010. I had put them aside for many years, married my husband Joe, helped raise my two stepsons, did my decorative painting business to make money, put my own personal art aside. And it wasn't until the kids were a little older, and the recession happened in 2008, 2009, and I had my business totally tanked. And I said, you know what? I want to get back to my art, and I want to get back to the apology line. And I copied, because all the tapes are on cassettes, 60 or 90-minute cassettes.
Right.
And I made it my business to make 3 copies of each one for safekeeping, and to listen to every one. And that took me 2 years. And at the end of it, I was so blown away. I had never taken a deep dive into it, because when you live with something, I didn't listen to every call that came in. I was busy. I was working. I was making dinner. I was living my life, making art, doing what I needed to do. And I didn't hear all of it. And when I finally heard it all, I was really, truly humbled and blown away by the depth and the enormous humanity that's encased in it. And I knew that I had to bring it to the public. It needs to be heard. The archive, as I call it, really needs to be heard. And we're going to get that opportunity. I mean, I don't think we'll play all 15 years, but we'll play selections as much as we can. And I am looking for a way to put all of Alan's archive for free on some kind of server at some point. That's my goal before I get too old and croak myself, is to make it available to the general public, the entire thing. Because I think it's for the people. You know, he never made a dime off of this, and he did it for free for the people. And I think that the best thing I can do is make sure that his wishes are honored, and it's available to the people.
Yeah. Well,
so it will be.
I'll be happy to help you with that for sure, because I agree with you. I think that's something that should just be out there for everybody. And I'm one of those people that would probably listen to all 15 years of it, you know.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who would, because you know, it's if you're interested in hearing it, it's quite extraordinary, and it's a work of art that's very unique to the 20th century. There's nothing like it, and because of our world today and how it's changed, there will never be anything like it because of social media, where we overshare. Everybody knows everything, and so what you share doesn't have the same import and meaning. But when you listen to the apology line, people made an effort to call, and they hid in a closet, or they waited till no one was home, or there's one caller, Shame, the young man, he's in the podcast. He and his family, he lived in Brooklyn. They had one phone for like 8 people. There was his parents and 6 siblings, and they had one phone in the kitchen on a long, long cord. And he would have to like pull that cord into his bedroom to listen to the apology line. And then his mother would be like, phone, like, what are you doing? The phone calls were expensive. And so people put in an enormous amount of effort to participate, and at great personal expense. So that's all in there, and you can hear it. And it's very important. It's an important piece of our culture and of our time.
Yeah,
of the late 20th century.
Yeah, I agree, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. I'm still fascinated by it. So anything you publish, I'm going to be on top of for sure, because it's that's the kind of thing that I just absolutely love. I think the project was great, and the podcast was really good too for you to be able to bring it to life, and that probably couldn't have been overly easy for you too, to kind of rehash some of that stuff, but I'm certainly glad you did it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a difficult process in a lot of ways, but I'm really, really glad I did it too. I'm so happy, and I'm really grateful to Wondery to give us the opportunity to have done that. I think it could have been longer. I think they skipped over a lot of stuff to sort of concentrate on the true crime aspects of it and Richie, but aside from that, and they have their reasons, they like to do 6 episodes, and that's it. But within that parameter, I think they did an amazing job.
Yeah, and I've loved a lot of their stuff that they produced too. But you're right; they tend to lean toward the true crime aspect of things. So, and I get, and I mean, again, any chunk of this was interesting. So, I'm glad. And for you folks out there, again, it's called The Apology Line. Go listen to it. You can grab it at Apple Podcast. I think do you have to use the Wondery app now? Is that correct?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
you can't find it on Apple Podcasts anymore?
You can find it, but I want to say that you have to, and it's free, but I think you have to use the Wondery app to grab it. But I'm not positive with that. But somebody was telling me, because I was talking about this, I was pretty giddy about getting to talk to you. So I was talking to somebody else about it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to have to go listen to that." I'm like, "You have to." And they said, "Oh, I had to download Wondery something to listen to it." So I don't know. It's on my phone. So I downloaded it a long time ago. So and I went back and listened to a couple of the episodes too. So But really, I do appreciate you doing it, and
it's on. I just looked at it. It's on Apple Podcasts.
Is it? Okay, great, good deal. Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
well, that's good then. So
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Wondery.
Yeah, it's out there. It's called The Apology Line, folks. And if you haven't listened to it, by all means, please do. It's wonderful, and make sure you have some time, because you're not going to want to get out of your car. Because I know that, I mean, I was actually popping in the AirPods and walking into work listening to it, because I just didn't want an episode to end.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. I'm
was
so glad to hear that.
No, I was absolutely fascinated by it, and I think a lot of people would be. But Marissa, I really appreciate you being on the show. You could have done a lot of other podcasts that are better, but you chose this one, and I appreciate it. And I've been looking forward to talking to you ever since we, kind of communicated a few weeks ago. So I appreciate the work that you've done. I look forward to the work you're going to do, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. You're a really educated listener, and you know the podcast well, and you know the project. So it's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you about it.
All right, everyone, Marissa Bridge, The Apology Line, and we'll look forward to hopefully talking to Marissa again for some projects that she has coming up. Marissa, once again, thanks for joining us this morning.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, so that was my conversation with Marissa Bridge. I probably kept her a little longer than she wanted to go, but
we're known to go long.
We are. That's very true.
We got lots to say. There's lots to say, and what a cool thing, and gosh, and certainly thank you to her for just taking the time and just being willing to talk and strong work, brother, with with the research and just engaging her in the conversation. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, she was great to talk to, and I had a lot of fun with it. And she's got some projects coming up that she wants to talk to us about a little later. So
awesome.
And
awesome.
Hopefully we can both be in studio. To talk with her. She completely understood, though, that she had a couple of I want to say family members that graduated from Duke. So
they're hurting too.
Yeah, so I think she's sharing that pain for sure.
But we're onward and upward, and it's still right. and it still shows 16, man.
It is. It shows 16. I can't believe it. We've made it this far for sure.
Rolling.
It is right, and
not hating.
That's right. And so as we kind of wrap this one up today, I do want next week. We got to talk about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock.
I know.
I've got so much to say.
Yes.
And I know we also want to talk about the nurse in Nashville. You had mentioned that to me, and I kind of looked up that case, and that's just borderline ridiculous. But
scary stuff.
It is, and I mean, particularly for the medical profession, it's since we have so many nurses, right? I mean, let's right. make sure no one ever wants to be a nurse again.
Right. Exactly.
But
exactly.
And I've also got a good story about I was trying to buy a steak and cheese sub the other day, and it became a whole fiasco, as only it would for me, right?
For a steak and cheese.
Just for a steak, and that's all I wanted was just a steak and cheese sub. Like, I just want a steak and cheese sub.
Did I ask you if you wanted some cheese with that wine?
No, I just couldn't get the damn sandwich. They wouldn't let me have it.
I look forward to
that. So hey, folks, you can listen to us or view us and see us on YouTube. Of course, we appreciate all the folks that have been risking their monitors and screens to do so. Exactly. But you can hear us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Easy for me to say. Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Pandora, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, and just about anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. So yeah,
Thank
folks.
You, Europe.
Hey, thanks to Europe, all of our good friends in Europe. We appreciate it. Thank you, man, for being a trooper.
Absolutely.
and doing this today. I know it wasn't easy.
So, as you know, man, the show must go on.
That's right.
The show must go on.
That's right.
Thank you, brother.
All right, folks.
Thank you, everybody for listening. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, folks. Have a good one.